The Canon RF 50mm 1.2 has without a doubt been my favourite and most used lens since switching over to the RF mount around about a year ago. It constantly impresses me with its sharpness, rendering and character. It's got a couple of downsides though, which it shares with many other RF L series lenses, and that is its size, weight and cost. So that's where the RF 50mm 1.8 prime lens comes in, offering a fast 1.8 aperture in a comparatively small and inexpensive package. So in a pretty unfair comparison, I'm going to put the 50mm 1.8 up against the L series RF 50mm 1.2 prime lens to see just how noticeable the differences are between these two lenses and how much more performance you get out of an L series lens for your money. Not only that, but I'm not going to immediately tell you which image was taken with which lens. So in as fair of a way as possible, you can see for yourself just how differently these two lenses perform. And you never know, you might be surprised. So let's get started. Starting with the 50mm 1.8, I wanted to get a straightforward side-by-side comparison with the 50mm 1.2 lens to highlight some of the differences you can expect between these lenses. At face value, the 50mm 1.8 images look great in both the mid-length and full-length shot, with a good amount of separation, clarity and contrast. Moving over to the 50mm 1.2, after using the 1.8, it's easy to see the extra separation you're getting from that 1.2 aperture. Comparing them side by side, you can see there's a little more going on, with the 50mm 1.8 having a fairly strong magenta tint, and it's also quite a bit more contrasty than the 1.2. The mid-length shots highlight the difference in background separation also, which is perhaps a little less evident in the full-length shots. If we zoom in on the shots, we can see a big difference in sharpness between the lenses wide open. The 50mm 1.8 looks a little soft, especially in comparison to the incredibly sharp 1.2 lens. Taking an even closer look, again, the 50mm 1.8 is just not rendering as clear of an image as the L series lens, which is to be expected. But are the differences always that obvious? Let's do some more direct comparisons, but this time in a less controlled, more real-world way, and see if you can determine which lens was used for which image. One thing I've always loved about the 1.2 lens is its rendering of out of focus elements in the foreground, like these cherry blossoms at the bottom of the frame in these images. But even side by side, is it obvious to you which is which? Because it wasn't for me. But it is the 1.2 on the left. The telltale sign is the extra blur on those blossoms in the foreground. But even the colour differences aren't that big here. Taking a step back, here's another set of similar images. I love both these images, but for me it's a little obvious which lens was used for which image here, with one having a bit more separation from the busy elements surrounding Rachel in the frame and making her stand out that little bit more. This time it's the L series lens on the right. Now, shooting up with the cherry blossoms in the background and the bright sky behind makes for a busy, distracting background, but a good opportunity to see how each lens renders these challenging out of focus areas. A fast aperture prime helps blur out those distracting elements and brings focus to the subject. This time it's the 1.8 lens on the right. This is where the 1.2 lens shines, offering a much smoother background and increased separation. A similar shot, but this time adding a bit of foreground interest to the frame with the flowers and book to further challenge each lens, and at this point the differences do become a little more apparent. The L series is on the right, again given away by its ability to tame that busy, distracting background. Here's another example showing similar results. This time the 1.8 lens is on the right. I wanted to shoot straight down the path, getting a full-length shot on each lens to see if the differences are less apparent. Both images do look great here, but again, one does have that extra little bit of separation. Colour differences and the extra background blur give away that it's the L series lens on the right. I wanted to throw in a quick clip on each lens shot on the R6 in 4K to show some of the differences if you are planning to use these lenses for video. Starting with the 1.8 lens, it was really fast to focus and tracked Rachel's eye really well, doing a great job of separating her from the background in this scene. I was very happy with its performance. Moving on to the 1.2, and although I pretty much never would shoot at 1.2 in video, I think the L lens renders an overall more pleasing image here in colour, sharpness and separation. The next day, I decided that perhaps I wasn't being overly fair to the dramatically cheaper 1.8 lens and was interested to see how both lenses performed, stopped down a bit to 2.8. Here's a shot on both lenses against another fairly busy background. It's much harder to tell them apart here, even side by side. You have to look really close to spot the differences, where you can see here that despite being stopped down, the 1.8 lens still has a bit of a hazy look to it in comparison to the razor sharp 1.2 lens. Interestingly, even stopped down to the same aperture, the L series lens offers a smoother background. If we hone in on that top right corner of the frame, you can see the bokeh edges are smoother compared to the other image. But we really are nitpicking at this point, and especially if you are willing to stop the lens down a bit, the images are very comparable, forcing you to look pretty close to spot the differences. Also, at 50mm focal length, 2.8 does still offer plenty of separation in my opinion. Aside from the obvious size and weight disparity, there are some other physical differences to consider between these lenses. The 1.8 lens only offers a single control ring, and you can use a toggle switch to choose between using it as a focus ring or another function. It has a tiny front element and a 43mm filter thread. The L lens has a focus limiter as well as a dedicated focus ring and separate control ring. Its larger front element means bigger, more costly 77mm filters. In general, in terms of handling, the 1.8 lens is ridiculously light and nice to hold, even when using the camera one-handed. Although the 50mm 1.2 isn't the heaviest or largest L series lens, it's still around 6 times heavier than the 1.8 lens, adding significant weight to the front of your camera. So that rounds out the video, and overall I was happy with the results I got from the RF 50mm 1.8 lens. Sure, it is not the sharpest lens in the world wide open, but if you're not going to pixel peep, it creates great images, it's fast focusing and really nice to use thanks to its small size and lightweight. If 50mm isn't your favourite focal length but you still want to have it covered, then for me this lens is a no-brainer. But if you do like 50mm, then I think the extra performance you get out of that L series lens is definitely worth the extra cost, especially if you're a working professional. The 50-1.8 sees a big performance increase, stopped down to around about 2.8. And at that point the results start to get pretty comparable with the much more expensive L series 50mm 1.2 lens. So what did you think to the results? Did you find it easy to spot the differences between the lenses in the images? And did you see enough of a performance increase in the L series lens to justify that extra cost? Or was the 1.8 lens close enough? Let me know down in the comments. So that's it for the video. Thank you for watching, and I hope it helped if you are trying to decide between these two lenses. See you next time.